Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researcher Celebrity. Today we have Professor Padmanabh Dwivedi with us and a brief introduction of Sir. Professor Padmanabh have done his BSc in Botany Honors and Masters in Botany, both from Banaras Hindu University. And then for PhD in Plant Sciences, he moved to Cambridge at University of Cambridge, and then after PhD came back to India, started as a lecturer at Rajiv Gandhi University, Itanagar, where he worked up until reader, and joined Banaras Hindu University as an associate professor. Current affiliation, he is professor at Department of Plant Physiology, Institute of Agricultural Sciences in Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. With this brief introduction, we would say thank you so much, Professor Padmanabh, for taking time out for this conversation.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
We always start our conversation that how and when you decided to become a researcher.
Well, it's not a very easy to answer, but I think when I was in class 12, I pursued my schooling from Kendriya Vidyalaya that was located in the campus of BHU. And I had the fascination in biology particularly. So that time I realized that I should be in science, doing some teaching and research. And that motivated me. And then I appeared in the entrance examination conducted by BHU at that time. It was started that time only. Before that, it was used to be on the merit basis. So when I joined for a BSc from BHU, I got honors in botany. And that was the time when I interacted with very, very esteemed and learned teachers from all across disciplines like botany, zoology, and chemistry. And that also enthused me and motivated to pursue in science that I had thought of in previous 2 or 3 years. So that was the way I came into this field and pursued throughout during my MSc. And it was the journey that began particularly, I would say, in the MSc final uh, when I had gone through, an advertisement in the Central Library of BHU in the magazine Science, which was all about, the UNESCO fellowship that was sponsored by the Czech Academy of Sciences, Czech Republic. So that time, I had initially joined in Department of Biotechnology as a JRF in the botany department. But when I came across this, I had applied and finally I got selected there. Uh, Usually it's 7 to 8 persons selected every year there at that time. So that was a kind of, training program come scientist visits in the field of microbiology. And that was a different one because I didn't have that kind of, experience in microbiology and ecology. And so to say that, a little bit of biochemistry. But my supervisor, the mentor, was very kind enough, that also motivated me to pursue throughout. I was there for 10 months and 11 months approximately. So there I worked on, wood degrading fungi and its related biochemistry and ecology a bit. And that also motivated me to pursue further. I was selected, there to pursue PhD program there also. But in the meantime, before, departing for Czech Republic at the age of 23, 24, I had applied for this, PhD program, Nehru Trust for Cambridge University, which offers, 3 years full funding for PhD. And so it's kind of preliminary and mains and then followed by interview. So I had already applied in the final application with all my, proposals to the University of Cambridge and Department of Plant Science. And finally, I got selected in 3 phases of this, competition. And I was one of the 8 students that time to work, selected to work in PhD program all across the disciplines, you name any. So that paved me, another way to step forward in the field of science and pursue my dream. of being in this field of science and research. And finally, when I completed my research there in 3.5 years, I came back to India because I always wanted to come back to home. And I joined Rajiv Gandhi University, Department of Botany as a lecturer in 1999, and got the opportunity to become reader in 2005. And I worked there, day and night. It was a new, comparatively new university, particularly the botany department. So I established lab also there, and it was a hub for biodiversity. So we wrote a lot of proposals for the potential for excellence that was facilitated by UGC, and we got it. So we worked on those things also. It was initial days of my career, so it was a good passion, more energy, vibrant. So I worked a lot for the cause of university in many disciplines. I mean, many projects there, broad projects also there, because it was a very new, comparatively new science stream department in that university, and learned a lot in my initial days. And finally got a chance to move back to BHU in the Department of Plant Physiology in 2006. And in 2011, elevated to professor. And since then, I have been working there. So that
Wonderful.
was a brief journey.
That was a great journey, and we will dissect this journey in different parts, starting from the
Yeah.
PhD. So, as you mentioned, a 23-year-old young boy have, two offers in hand. One from Czech Republic, where he went for a fellowship, and now have offer also for PhD, and other at the University of Cambridge. So, let's start from the first decision-making point. When you had these two offers, you chose one over the other. For what were the reasons, so that our audiences, the next generation of researchers, they are also in dilemma in so many times when they have offered from different countries, different topics, different labs, so how they should pick one.
Actually, I was more motivated into the plant system and the research doing in plant system rather than microbiology at that time. And when I got that offer from one of the prestigious premier institutions like Cambridge, at that time it was within 1 and 3 ranking in the world. So obviously it was highly motivated for me to join there and pursue further my research program.
So research focus is what drove your decision, and you landed in Cambridge.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's start with the journey, how it started, because you already have experienced some of your time in Czech Republic. So that was not your first flight when you were in outside India. So the
Yeah.
challenges which as a researcher you faced when you started your PhD, and by the time, how it went.
Yeah, it was quite interesting and quite, informative for me because from, at the age of 23, 24, immediately after MSc, going to Czech Republic and then a year later joining Cambridge University, the environment and ambience is entirely different. And different in the sense that here in India, there is a good rapport between the supervisor and the students, and the supervisors are, interacting occasionally, not many times. They are coming to lab and interacting, free chat without any problem. You can meet them anytime, and a lot of help for making your proposals and discussion anytime whenever you have the feeling. That contrary to this, in Cambridge, you don't have that luxury to meet your supervisor, depending upon the person to person. But my supervisor was head of the department at that time, and also he was a very busy person. So we need to have an appointment with him 2, 3, 4 days prior to when you wanted to meet him with his secretary. But he used to give time because after 5 o'clock you can go anytime to meet him, but with the prior information and appointment. And when I reached there, the very first day he handed over me a very small piece of paper. And although I had, my proposal already ready, and on that proposal I was selected, and I was hoping that I would go through with that program. But nonetheless, it was surprising to see that it was just kind of, basis to select you, rather than, it was not that you will be working on that. It's not guaranteed. It wasn't guaranteed. So he gave me one piece of paper with half written on that, he wanted to me to pursue on certain program, which, uh, very tricky program. He wanted to pursue that for a very long time, to see just the, plant respiration, whether really it is a start of a carbohydrate under the natural conditions. So I had to prove that the respiratory substrates are the carbohydrates or proteins, or, if they are going in the plants, are going under natural conditions. So whether it is likely that the plant carbohydrates situate to proteins or lipids under the starved condition or not. But the only thing was that to see that the plant should be growing under natural conditions. You don't have to excise them. You don't have to bring back to the lab and then you pursue that. So that was a challenging, and I used to have a lot of worked on pea and Arabidopsis, and also on tree, a fraxinus tree. Used to go to forest and take out the roots. And that time we don't have this Hensatech oxygraph in my lab, so we used to calibrate on manometer respiration measurements. So that was a very challenging, also, and a very learning for me also. So I worked that on those aspects, and I also visited during my program at the University of University of Wales in Bank, that is in UK. So there also I had the opportunity to do some part of my work there. So it was a good experience, and you have to work on your own, design experiments on your own. There are very fewer people to help you out. Obviously, the postdocs and seniors are there, to guide you for some time. But writing your thesis, presenting your work on day-to-day basis, after fortnightly, presenting your seminars, work in the seminars and conferences, that was all you have to design and do. No experimental design by your supervisor, nor your friends or colleagues. Entirely you have to decide. You have to calibrate things. You have to write thesis. And, it's not like our Indian part that you got, being checked by your supervisors, putting red this and that, and very friendly manner you are going through getting your degree. But it's not like that. They won't, what I realized that it's a good learning curve there in abroad, in the institutions like Cambridge, Harvard, and Oxford, and other American United States universities, that you normally don't have to rely on your teacher. They are not, checking on everything. You have to inculcate things, and with English wise or grammar wise, or text wise, whatever you are putting things in writing. So it has to be coming from your own studies and knowledge and perception. So that was a great learning experience for me. That was a bit different, challenging, but it was a very great experience for me. I learned a lot from that sojourn in Cambridge.
Nice. So that is one thing which developed you into an independent researcher early on when you were starting your own PhD.
Yeah,
As you
yes,
mentioned
yes.
about challenges from initiating the PhD, you thought that you have a project on which you have been selected. And then when you land there, you see that, okay, that's not what you are going to work on. You are going to work on something else. But there were opportunities, as you mentioned about when you did some collaborated work in University of Wales. So based on this experience, we try to tell our audience here that if possible, they should try to use the network of the PI they are joining their lab, or in cases they should initiate that conversation that if some of the infrastructures, instrumentations are not in the lab and they would really want to do, so they should take this as a lead and establish new collaborations, so that again, focusing back that how this trains you for your future to become an independent researcher where you have to do everything from scratch, everything by yourself. So,
Yeah,
how challenging was this for you when you were almost done with your PhD? The next step, you already know that you want to come back to India. But when you moved back to India, how then that journey started?
yeah. Firstly, I would like to touch upon the first part, that where you talk about the collaborations between the labs. And my suggestions to youngsters and young faculty members who are pursuing their degrees in universities abroad is that always try to have link with the scientists whenever you go for a conference or visits like in other universities and like that. You must interact with them. They are very friendly, and the more ideas you come across, and that helps you a lot. Your perception of thinking, your way of approach for any experiment may change. Many times it changes because the fruitful discussions, out of the fruitful discussion that you have with all such scientists who are very learned and experienced. And also, while coming back to India, talking about coming back to India, because it was my decision to come back, I had opportunity to work abroad also for postdoctoral fellow. Many of my colleagues and fellow, they wanted me to continue, but I prefer to come back to India and get some job there and serve my country back with my parents also, who were becoming more older. So it was a challenge, yes, but I always try to follow those culture, the ethics of what I had learned from the established lab abroad in prestigious labs, and I try to follow that suit in Indian conditions also, to interact with my students and share my experiences with them, inculcate passion into them. And I was able to see that many of our students also, based on interactions with me, and they also try to visit abroad and follow the same thing, the collaborative work. So when I went to initial days in Arunachal Itanagar, that was the only way where I could find, because that time, there was a problem with advertisements, so the chances of vacancies were very less that time when I came back. So fortunately, I got that job as assistant professor there. And the mandate of that university was to work on biodiversity, entirely different what that I was pursuing, or I had pursued, or I wanted to. So depending upon the mandate of that university, in particular of that department, I had to a bit, diversify my work, my research area, keeping a little bit of my own passion, that is plant physiology, into that. So I continued that, and it was basically with the biotechnological implications to conserve biodiversity, particularly the medicinal plants. They had a lot of medicinal plants. So I did some physiology of medicinal plants and the conservation part, phytochemistry part, till I was there with some funds from DBT and NPP, and established my lab there. Worked a lot for establishing potential for excellence, Women Technology Park, and many other academics related things. So by that time, it was more experience and more knowledge that I gained, and then helped me later in subsequent career here at BHU as well.
Exactly. So having those skill sets, as you mentioned, and broadening your horizon is what researchers do at every stage of their life. So working in a field which was not, you were not trained for during your PhD, based on that experience, what you can share with our audience is that when they are planning to change the field or the subject or the research focus after their PhD, how they can prepare themselves better.
Yeah, that's very important question, because if I'm serving, if you are serving in some certain circumstances where the mandate and where the and things are different than what you have done, so you have to inculcate based on your experience how really you can fit your expertise, your subject into the researches that they are wanting you to do, and also keep it alive, so that because it is in your heart, and so some way or the other you would definitely come to those aspects. But if the mandate is a bit different, you are supposed to do something for that particular area and that particular field to develop. So as a scientist, it should be taken as a challenge by the people, by the youngsters, and do their best whatever manner you can do. And when I came back to India, I mean BHU, I pursued entirely the same thing. Some part of those experiences and the subject I continued here also, because by that time I had developed passion for that, and developed skills also for that. And then I continued also along with my own passion of plant physiology and Talim. That's what I'm doing here for the last more than 20 years at PhD.
So, having worked in UK, Czech Republic, Germany, you have worked a lot in Europe and in India. Now, people are talking about well-being of researchers, their mental health, the work-life balance. So let's start with the mental health uh, aspect first, because it's not only in India but all around the world. We have seen that PhD students are quitting after spending sometimes 2 to 5 years for their PhD, and due to unknown reasons or known reasons, now we started acknowledging those reasons, they quit. How we can train our researchers early on so that they are well prepared for those challenges.
Actually, what I see, the problem lies that the young students, the researchers need a lot of mentoring also. If somebody wants to make career in research, he has to be mentally strong enough, to face the challenges. So what sort of challenges one can come across, that is, can be better addressed by the mentors. And we have the right here, what my suggestion is that when the student comes at UG lab, a professor should be allotted, to become mentor for 4 or 5 students at least at their early stage of life, of the career. So what happens that by the time they come for masters, they know the nuances and the pros and cons of being in this field, what kind of challenges they can face, and what kind of the different sides of the coins, the two sides of the coins they are quite aware of by the time they enter for research. And the execution and the strategic planning is very must essential. If you want to continue without any proper hypothesis, without any strategic based research, it is going to take you a long time. But if you are systematically planned your research, have a continued dialogue with your supervisors, whether it is in India or abroad, and you are hardworking. See, I always suggest my students there are two H, three Ds, and two Ts are very important. What is 2H? Hard and work and honesty. I believe that hard work always pays. And that is my one of the suggestions to the youngsters. The two, three are transparency and trust. Trust with your colleagues, trust with your supervisor, and transparency in research methodology and the data that you generate. The transparency to keep your work that is reproducible. Multiple replicates you do, and the work should be reproducible. If I present something, that should be reproducible in another lab also. So with the data generation, you have to be very transparent. And the three Ds are key to any success in life. That is dedication, discipline, and determination. So all these three to five, seven ingredients, if you have, you are going to succeed. Obviously, the passion is very important, and the right direction, the right guidance is very important. That's where the role of people like us becomes very important.
Absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned, starting from your childhood days, the teachers always plays this mentorship role, that when
Yeah,
they motivate you, they tell you something about your own personality. Like, either it is early on training, as you mentioned. I think these are wonderful points for every researcher who want to test themselves in research career for the rest of their life. Having these pointers, as sir mentioned, about 2H, about hard work and honesty, about 2Ts, transparency and trust, and about these 3Ds, dedication, discipline, and determination. I think this is the full package for success, no matter if you are in the field of research or in any other field. You keep
any
this,
other field.
and then success is yours. Talking of transparency and trust, having sometimes the labs are not very, perfect for one person, like they can be toxic. And we have seen this in longer run, where in the most sad points where the researchers commit suicide also. So I think that is one T which is missing there. Either it is about the transparency, because this immense pressure of publication, which is getting worse and worse every year. The PhD student now, whatever the freedom they had 20 or 30 years ago is not what they have today. It is the pressure that they have to perform. And sometimes, because of this pressure, and if they have not gone through that early on training in research, as you mentioned, that if they are aware of some things in their undergrad time, that prepares them that okay, when they are committing either for master's research or PhD research, they know that what is coming in near future. So when they start manipulating the data, that's when all it starts, and that one T is broken there. Only the transparency and the trust, both of the T's are shattered, and at the end of the day everyone suffers: the society, the scientific community, and the researcher, including the PI who's doing that. How we can avoid such circumstances, and what are your suggestions or guidance for those students who are going through this tough phase?
I think continuous dialogue with their fellow colleagues and the teachers, the mentor. The first very important thing is that they should be talking to them, whatever the problems there are related to academics or at personal level, they must be sharing it with their fellow students and the teachers as well. Number second thing is that you are rightly said now, that is why the UGC has now scrapped the importance of publishing one or two papers before submitting the thesis, because such situation has given students to publish their raw data without any proper thinking, without any proper strategy, and many of their important data are just gone to very predatory journals just for the sake of having one or two before submitting the thesis. So that is, data is very important. Publication is not that important now. The government has also realized, and policy has been in the change process. Another thing is that all the students should always have a notebook, a book for day to day what they are doing, their experiments, what the findings they are getting. If they have set up their experiments in field conditions or poly house or mist house, whatever they are in the lab, it should be regularly visited by their mentors, by the professors. Should be identified, verified by the teachers, by the supervisors. And that is the kind of, and that's also with the continuous dialogue and meeting on a cup of tea in the lab or in the department with the research scholars, by the supervisors or by the group of teachers in the department, discussing over the problems, what they are facing for the research, any related problems related to infrastructure, consumable items, or their personal problems, or some kind of differences with the fellow colleagues or like that. If such things are discussed in a group, addressed by the group of teachers, at the same time many of the problems can be solved there and there. No lingering of such kind of problems. So, and also there is a need to have a better ambience in the laboratory, in the department. That kind of culture is lacking many times, because students are under pressure for publications. What I would suggest that only have two or three good publications in good high impact journals. Obviously the work should have the application part, some kind of societal relevance. Just for the sake of publication in good impact factor and getting good APIs and the job, obviously that is also very important, because as part of the policy you have to have certain kind of good publications to get a job like that. But the focus should be on the importance, the significance of the findings of those results. So even if you have two or three good publications in high impact journals, that's going to do good for you. And obviously you must be presenting your data in various conferences. Many times the student has done his PhD, her or his PhD, and hardly presented data one or in two conferences. So that is also to be taken care of by the mentors and supervisors, that the student are prepared well enough. They are good in science, they are good in research many times, but they are not good in writing papers. They are not good in presenting. The communication problems is there. So I would suggest, what I do in my lab is that on the very first day the person enters for the PhD, I give him two tasks. Consult literature for at least 6 months. Come and discuss with me whatever problem you want. I am not going to give it a problem. You have to come to me with a suggestion that, sir, I want to do in these areas. These are the mandatory, these are the thematic areas of my lab. Within these thematic areas, depending upon your interests, what would you like to do? A very all sort of freedom. If you are able to decide, better. If you are able to decide with the dialogue between you and me, much better. If you are not able to decide, I will come into picture and I will tell you what to do. Then their communication skill. I used to have in my lab on a monthly basis a kind of small seminar in my own lab, where even if you don't have data, just have a recent publication in whatever area you are doing and discuss with your fellow colleagues and with me. So that kind of confidence, that kind of communication skill also they get. I ask them to write certain, review articles, for instance, to begin with. Keep on doing your research, keep on doing something, but try to write some kind of review articles in the area of whatever you're doing. Not necessarily for publication. Keep on compiling. At one stage, maybe after a year or 1.5 years, it would take a shape of a very nice article. And with the interference of your teacher, it may get a better shape and it could be published. So by the time you finish it off, you can have one or two review good articles in a better journal. And also, by the time you are ready to write thesis, your writing part is good. Not all the students have very good communication power. So there are people coming from diverse, uh, culture, cultures of society. So it's very common. Somebody is very good, no problem, but many people are not that very good. So you need to have to take care of such students, motivate them, make them more confident, and they excel like
Absolutely.
anything.
And I think starting from when a student is have initiating these conversation with their PhD supervisor, you perfectly mentioned that having those clear conversations is so important, that the early on you learn it and then maintain it over the periods, even when there are tough times, because we all know that research gives you all kind of hard time, and PhD trains you for the rest of your life. It's not just one training time which is done after your graduation or once you have completed the degree. It changes your name only for the people who can read that, okay, this is a doctor or PhD, but it changes your personality for everyone around you. People see a different personality when you joined the PhD and when you came out of the PhD. Having those communication is the key forever with everyone. Another issue which we face, and we have discussing this point on this series in researcher celebrities, that how it sometimes when you join a PhD, the understanding of yours and your mentor, so the mentor mentee relationship also plays very important role, that how easily, how smoothly, or how challenging your journey will be for your PhD. We have seen situations where a PhD student has to change their supervisors, and we say there is nothing wrong in that also, because your mental health is the most important thing. And yes, we also says that if you are in a bigger group, you don't have to be friends with everyone. You just have to learn that as a part of your training, that in future, wherever you are working, you are not working by yourself, you are working in a team, and having that team spirit alive is more than important. And I think if we have all these ingredients component well enough, then PhD can be enjoyable. Speaking of which, I always tell everyone that the golden life which I lived in research was when I was doing my PhD. That was the best time. I enjoyed the research in and out. And that was because of the mentoring I received. And as you mentioned, that how mentors are there for you navigating this path. They are not doing the troubleshooting for you, but they are guiding you how to troubleshoot those
Yes,
problems. They are
yes,
there to ask you that what are the research focuses which interests you the most, because the
yes.
moment students have that accountability that this is what they chose, they are extra committed to those research
Exactly,
topics also.
exactly, exactly.
So speaking of these journeys, that okay, once your students are done with their PhD, let's talk about the mentorship role post PhD, which I'm sure you have been wonderful in those. So, based on your experiences, what you can tell our young faculties who have this thought that okay, once the student is done with PhD, it's our responsibility is done.
See, uh, from I did my things from basic science botany. So the choice and the are different in science faculty in botany, in basic science, biotechnology than the agriculture. Now the students getting degree from agriculture, plant physiology, MSc AG plant physiology, PhD in plant physiology. They have limited options in the sense that either you become assistant professor, either you become ARS scientist, or there are diverse kind of opportunities are there depending upon the subject that you have pursued. For instance, if you are an entomologist, if you are a plant pathologist, if you are a soil scientist, you can be, going there as a assistant agriculture director, even as a plant physiology. You can go for any R&D industries related to fertilizers, related to pesticides. So opportunities are there, multiple opportunities if you are from the agriculture background. So depending upon the interest of the person who wants to see the job, not they don't have enough time, for one reason or the other. There are certain compulsions in the family or the students. So they prefer to go to these industries, these sectors, seed sectors, fertilizer sectors, and they got handsome salary, no problem at all. But we want to see those people whom we have trained, that how many of them pursue further for a postdoctoral fellow research, or if they are very good with all good credentials, they crack assistant professors competition, or ARS. So depending upon their choice and their priority, we accordingly guide them to go for that particular job or whatever it is there. So mostly in our cases, people have become assistant professors or in the state agriculture officer, assistant director in the agriculture. So whosoever is getting degree out of the lab or the department, they are well placed, whether in industry or whether in FCCI or anywhere the chain. The students are well placed.
Absolutely. And I think this is one thing which we also talk about, that having your priorities clear is very important. That, as you mentioned correctly, that sometimes it's the family where you need to support them financially. So even if you
Yes.
have dreams for doing something else, you have to take pauses and then keeping everything holistic. Neither you are compromising your own dreams nor you are compromising family's dream, but you are there to serve all of that, because at the end of the day, researchers are humans and they have to wear all those hats. Either it is administrator, HR person, or logistics manager, what not all you have to do. And this is also part of that, that when you are fulfilling everyone else's your responsibilities but others expectations from you also. It's not only the research, it's the humans around us also, which are important. At the edge of the conversation now, Professor Dwivedi, I would like to know the or hear your word of wisdom about research based on your experience, what you can guide our next generation of researchers.
He has already said that the key ingredients for a better success career is what I already explained, that hard work and honesty, trust and transparency, determination, passion, all these are very important. The ethical issues are very important also. One consideration is very important in research. Uh, I should be responsible what I am doing. Never away. My professor at the Cambridge used to say that believe in yourself, whatever you're doing. Don't see what your next door person is working. He might be doing wrong experiments, wrong things. So don't follow. He used to come and say like that to MSc whenever he used to take classes in UG and PG. So the only thing is that by the time you know that you are into certain research aspects, you follow the proper guidelines, follow the ethical issues of, and go along with your supervisor, have a good dialogue with your supervisors, with your seniors, and I am sure that you will come with flying colors.
Absolutely. I think that's a great wrap up. Now we can tell all the audience that if you want to write to Professor Dwivedi, you can write to him. If you want STEM for Society to put you in touch with our researcher celebrities, we are there to support you. The only thing which we want is passion for research from your side. And if research makes you happy, we are here to help you in our capacity. With this, we'll say thank you so much, Professor Dwivedi, for your time and a wonderful conversation with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a nice experience to have interact with you for this course. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure to have you. To all the audience, I can say that stay tuned for another episode of Researcher Celebrity.